UK presenter Dan Wootton has made a career persecuting and condemning people based off mere allegations on social media. So it's hard to not see the irony and the hypocrisy of his response when allegations accuse him. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore, and let me say right out the gate, even though I don't like the guy for some of his takes, they were wrong. Dan Wootton is innocent until proven guilty. I just wish he would give that same due process that he wants now to some of the people that he's reported on in the past. And that's the report here I want to give to you guys, because I see a lot of you from yesterday's breakdown. If you don't know the latest accusations, they're accusations trying to expose Dan. You can go up here. I'll put it at the end. Go educate yourself so you can learn more about it. Last night at the end of that stream, he gave a response, and we're going to play that response. But before we play that response and I offer you my commentary and frustration with his response, I want to give you some backstory about why I look at this a little bit more side-eyed. Because yes, Dan could very well be innocent. In fact, he is innocent, but I'm just meaning these people could very well be lying about him. It is absolutely possible. I don't know enough. I wasn't there. I'm not here to condemn Dan Wootton on the current allegations. No, but I am going to call him out for the fact that he wants this due process now, but he didn't give it to Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp was the, I can't show you here, the WB. This is what caused the whole UK lawsuit in the first place. And this is false. It's absolutely false. There is no proof of this. There isn't. In fact, they went to a whole jury trial here, and it was proven that didn't happen here in the States. And then when they won, he is one. Dan Wootton has been so aggressive towards Johnny, saying he's no victim of cancel culture. He's spent years trying to cancel Amber Heard and me. Huh? Let's see the receipts, dude, on that. Let's see those receipts. This farce of a trial is designed to ruin his ex-wife, but won't erase the damning judgment against him. You mean the judgment from that judge? That I would wonder, did you have anything to do with that? Is that why you're not suing now for defamation? Because if you sued for defamation, you'd have to open up a lot of your records and your text message and things, wouldn't you? Are you worried that there's stuff in there that might illuminate us on how you won that trial? The fact that Judge Nichols' kid worked for Rupert Murdoch, who owned the paper you did, Dan. I mean, let's keep it a buck here. There's a lot of questions I have about all of this and the trial you won based off of allegations that were nonsense. Now, there's more I want to go through, but let's go to something even sillier. The Johnny Depp one's the highest of this is bad. But here's Dan Wootton returning to Buckingham Palace for some quiet reflection and to lay his own tribute. Crowds young and old, all there, the best of British, doing their justice. Here he is, laying the flowers down, pausing as the camera films him, waiting for him to say action, leaving the flowers at a nice spot, and then slowly panning by as Mr. Burns stands there with his hands, and then awkwardly walks away from his own iPhone. And fans were very quick to call this out because that's exactly what Dan does to Meghan and Harry. How lucky that a photographer happened to be here to capture this deeply personal moment. Here's Dan calling out the fact that they were snapped at a cemetery. Isn't that what you're doing here, bro? Conveniently, you had it filmed. Isn't that what you keep accusing Harry and Meghan of doing? How lucky that a photographer just happened to catch this. Everybody was just slamming into him. I love your show, Dan, but you could have done this in private, fella. But it just shows you how not genuine he seems to be at times. He'll critique people, but then not see that he's doing it himself. And then there's this. Now, I know this, for some reason, is still an unpopular opinion, but I would ask you to do some more homework on Michael Jackson, because the man was never convicted of what Dan Wootton's about to say.
Yes, but no, right. I know this is his brother who is still grief-stricken, but we cannot let this rest because there are victims here and they are not letting Michael Jackson rest. I get really angry about this. It was just last year, the 60th birthday of Michael Jackson, where a whole load of companies wanted to make a whole load of money off his legacy. The legacy of a pedophile.
Yeah, he said the word. The legacy of a what, Dan? Do you have legal facts to back that up? I thought you were a journalist. You're on the news. Now, I know people believe this, but you should know better that that's defamatory. Now, it's not technically defamatory because Michael's dead and now they can say this, but the Leaving Neverland documentary, my God, do some homework, guys. Go watch Lies of Leaving Neverland. Go watch Square One. Talk about extortionists, money, clout-chasing parents who are out there trying to destroy the legacy of Michael Jackson. Now, if you wanted to say, I don't like that he was, had kids staying over, which he did admit to, fine. I don't like that either. I've never hid that from anybody. In fact, I told that to Michael's own nephew, Taj Jackson, who's very vocal about defending his uncle. And Taj's like, yeah, well, I was there. You're the one who's making it actual. You don't realize that was a playroom. We were watching movies, falling asleep, and there were tons of people. Heck, we had a girl who stayed in Michael Jackson's estate who illuminated us and all what that was like. There's so many misconceptions about Michael. And sure, were there some things that it's like, dude, why are you doing that? Absolutely. But did he ever cross that line? Do you have proof of this, Dan? Do you have proof of this? Because they filed criminal charges against him and he won. It wasn't until after his death when he couldn't be sued, he couldn't sue anybody for defamation when those two clout chasers came forward. But Dan doesn't care about the evidence. Dan doesn't care that he was not guilty on all counts and won and went through all that. No. Dan doesn't care about that. Dan doesn't seem to care about Caroline Flack either. Have you guys looked up her? What a tragic story. This Love Island host was just mercilessly trashed by Dan's papers. He was just incessantly on top of her. And then conveniently after she died, well, he changed his story. After he died, it's by unaliving out of fears of the prosecution and everything else and these papers, he then came out as the friend. Oh, it's so awful the way that everybody out there is treating Caroline Flack. He tried to, after all these awful headlines and things, he tried to be the hero. Oh, you're all being unfair and it's ridiculous. Leave her alone. Why did he do that? Seems like he was trying to save face. And the frustrating thing about this is, and again, I can't prove it. So this is where I get confused on the whole thing. There's a lot of stuff regarding Caroline Flack, regarding the new BBC presenter, that people say that the organization has removed articles, tweets, etc., to basically cover their butts, to try to not show the hypocrisy here. And I would ask anybody out there, if you have proof of this, please send it your way, because I'd love to prove the truth here. Another one that just came forward, Lily Allen. While I'm able to take responsibility for my own actions, I can hand on heart say that a big part of the reason I would get myself into these states was because of the relentless bullying and constant surveillance and scrutiny this man had me under for no reason. Karma's always a bitch. Couldn't be happier. I'm thriving now. Here is Dan saying, Lily Allen, what a mess, but finally exposed because she was wasted. Medics dashed to Lily unconscious in a party field. Now, she went on to reiterate, look, I'm aware, I'm blaming Dan for my own dependencies. That's not what she very eloquently here, you can pause and read this if you want to read it, but just talks about Peaches Gadoff, Amy Winehouse, Caroline Flack were all bullied and abused, subject to the same kind of harassment that I and many others were at the same time. It was the culture back then. We were fair game because we were female, young, articulate, we were paid, brilliant, vulnerable, relatable, all wore our hearts on our sleeves and spoke our truths, and we needed to be destroyed. I can't speak for the women above, neither can they, for obvious reasons, but I know how trapped I felt, how lonely and isolated I was, how scared I was. Dan Wootton last night claimed he is a victim of a smear campaign by nefarious players with an axe to grind, that his accusers is running a campaign to destroy his life. The irony is not lost on me. Maybe now Dan can begin to understand what it felt like. I actually wish him well. I hope that he comes out the other side of whatever it is he's facing, and that eventually it leads him to a place of happiness, peace, and truth. This is important because I agree with her. But we can't ignore the irony here. And he says he wants to change and he's learning and all this stuff. Is he? Is he? Let's watch this because, again, I want you to have the whole history of Dan Wootton and why a lot of us look at this side-eyed as he gives you this spiel. Let's break it down.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel. I'm Dan Wootton. And as a journalist, I feel uncomfortable being the story. But I've always promised you that this show has no spin and no bias and no censorship. So I owe it to you to address this. As you probably don't know, hopefully you don't know, because you're not insane enough to pay attention to the cesspit of social media.
Don't go on social media because it's all a cesspit. There's no truth there. That's what he's trying to automatically say. red flag number one for me.
These past few days,
I mean, it is a cesspool, but there is some stuff on there that's true, Dan, including your paper and your social media handles, your tweets, a lot of stuff.
I have been the target of a smear campaign by nefarious players with an axe to grind. Notably by an ex-partner who I was, and this is something I've never spoken about and it's very difficult to talk about publicly, but who I was previously...
I gotta be careful. He's going to say some things about that.
He has written to me confessing to being a, quote, psychopath. And I saw this firsthand when he threatened in writing.
Yeah, I gotta be careful. Some threats of things. Here's the response of that boyfriend. He said in a legal statement that I have made up some very serious allegations to get him canceled. This is false. I stand by every word I have tweeted. This story will continue to develop, and after hearing from others, the full truth will come out.
After we had broken up, gating. He has created an untrue story about me and appears to have been working with an organisation who are intent on closing down this channel, whose reporters include a convicted phone hacker. The Guardian?
Well, you really want to bring up phone hacking? Because Dan's been accused of that too. Now, never charged, granted, but from everyone I speak to, it's kind of like, well, yeah, that was what everybody did back then. How else did they get these stories? That was the kind of business he was in. But now that's all bad.
Has also reported it tonight. What a surprise. Other unspeakable slurs have been made by a convicted extortionist I have never even met, who has a long history of blackmailing gay men and...
So sue him, Dan, because that's a serious charge he's doing. Sue him. If you never met him, what are you afraid of?
Was
sue
sent
him.
to jail.
And if this is true, then screw that guy. And this is awful.
For a number of years by a judge who said his behavior was, quote, compulsive.
This was when he was 18 or 17. He was young.
And provided a high risk to the public.
The accuser has addressed all this. We talked about it in our last video.
I, like all fallible human beings, have made errors of judgment in the past.
Which ones? You gonna tell us? Because he's not. That's the I've done wrong.
But the criminal allegations being made against me are simply untrue.
But I'm not going to tell you what's true. Now, granted, he shouldn't have to. Like, it's none of our business to an extent. It really isn't. So I got to defend him here. He's not wrong in that. But it's very vague. And it's sort of like well, I've done some. Like, if you really want to own it, then say, look, I've done this. I'm ashamed of this. Clearly it's come forward. I have to acknowledge this. If you're going to address it, yes. Otherwise, don't address it because you're not really addressing it. You're just doing a vague addressment.
I would like nothing more than to address those spurious claims. I could actually spend the next 2 hours doing so, but on the advice of my lawyers, I cannot comment further.
But I'm going to comment for another 4 minutes.
But I have been thinking much over the past few days about the current state of social media, where any allegation can be made in an attempt to get someone cancelled, but it is impossible to defend yourself against thousands of trolls. That said, I am coming on air tonight with a lot of humility too. I think being in the middle of this witch hunt has made me think a lot about the sort of journalist and broadcaster I aspire to be. One focused on the massive political threats facing this country, not on personal attacks.
I mean, personal attacks on Meghan are pretty extreme, dude. I mean,
who doesn't have regrets? Should I be cancelled for them many years later? Or do you accept that I have learned and changed?
So, again, the irony of this. Dan Wootton is now a victim of potentially being canceled, but Johnny Depp was not. Just let that sink in and why I'm frustrated with this guy. Because he really just thinks, and some of you were like, Andy, you got to believe it. Red flag, red flag, red flag. Doesn't mean he's not innocent. He can very well be innocent. But dude, where was this guy during the Depp trial?
The last few years, I've grown professionally and personally. And I've also found the meaning of true love after that truly toxic relationship with my ex that hurt me and damaged me. I've found happiness in my personal life with my wonderful boyfriend who is here tonight, my friends and family and my world. The toll that this has taken on their mental health, well, I mean, that is literally killing me to watch. There is a reason why I have, since day one on this show, had a segment called Uncancelled. Because our rush to judge before due process, thanks in my case to the mad ramblings of highly politicised Twitter trolls and revolting blogs that eschew basic journalistic standards, is destroying democracy. And that's why, by the way, I didn't say a word about Hugh Edwards.
Now
Not
this
one word.
This is disputable. I can't find any evidence. People keep telling me the same thing he's about to say. Yeah, he deleted tweets. No one seems to have screenshotted or saved any of the articles or tweets. Not saying they didn't get deleted. I'm just saying I can't find it. So in Dan's defense, someone send me something, because it's kind of odd on the internet. No one kept a copy.
No tweet was deleted by me, despite the misinformation and lies perpetuated by Carol Vorderman. I didn't know the facts, and I wasn't going to weigh in until I did.
But you do all the time. You don't know the facts. You just assume them, like you did here with Johnny, like you do here with Michael, like you just, the Caroline Flack, like you don't always know the facts.
I do also note that there are dark forces out to try and take this brilliant channel down. Whether it's Nigel's bank account, which we're going to hear about from him soon, Patrick's Twitter, Jacob and Lee's ability to speak out, Calvin, who is also here tonight, his right to have religious views, or Lawrence speaking out against the entertainment establishment. We have all found ourselves under attack. And that's because GB News is the biggest threat to the establishment in decades. And they'll stop at nothing to destroy us.
Now, this is just fear. He's enlisting fear, and I'm sure there are forces trying to end it, his critics, but he's using emotion and fear to now rally his audience to disbelieve him. What if he did do these things? He's provided nothing to show us. That's the only thing that's a little scary here. Now, granted, he's innocent until proven guilty. These other people need to present something to prove that he's guilty. Same, it goes both ways, but don't address it then until it is what my thought. Don't start immediately introducing fear when you're not even just scorching these people with your proof.
But we will keep fighting for you, because we are a family here. You have been with me since day one on what has been a life-changing experience for me, and we have each other's back. The way you have understood what's been happening these past few days, and I've seen it, I've seen your messages, I've seen what you've had to say, and that has meant the world to me. I recognise I'm a polarising figure, and by speaking out in this way, I'm opening the gates of hell on my life. But social media has become a race to the bottom. Pile-ons are now the way to cancel a person. Our country is better than that. We must be. We must be. And that's why GB News exists. What we're trying to do here is something different, to give a voice to the long-forgotten people of the United Kingdom. And a great man reminded me today that people don't follow you because you're right. They follow you because you're real.
Huh? This dumbfounded me during the live. They don't follow you because you're right. They follow you because you're real. So he's basically admitting it doesn't matter if I'm telling you the truth, as long as I'm real about it and passionate and give you my energy. Then it matters. It doesn't matter if I'm telling you truths. I'm real, so just follow me. Huh?
So thank you for your support and the support of GB News. And now, the actual news.
I mean, this is pretty big news, dude. It's everywhere. Your own colleague now, John Cleese, or he's gonna be on the same network as Dan, is demanding and urging them, let's look into this. Mainstream press must check the story out. If they give this Boris Phones treatment, it's the final proof of their complete corruption. I mean, it's true. It's a news network that's gotten allegations, serious allegations that if they're false, then we need to have these false accusers be condemned. Absolutely. Like, let's not just let them get away with this. If they're lying, then expose those liars and let's condemn them. What is this? After the BBC just had a whole investigation they ignored. There's a lot of stuff that it's like, shouldn't we be taking this seriously? Shouldn't this is an employment place, a network. It is strange to me. So yes, now apparently the Sun and the Mail publishers are examining these claims against Dan. We'll see what happens, if there's any proof of this, and if it proves to be true, well, then that'll be pretty damning. And everyone who just blindly said, yeah, will have egg on their face, including a whole network. The reality is probably we won't know. There's probably no evidence. We'd probably see it already. And it's probably not all true. And Dan is innocent, in which case I hope, if anything, Dan will take this experience and realize the previous things he's done by posting headlines like this, that he should have been better than that. Like, Johnny didn't do this. We have no proof of this. In fact, we have proof that she cut his finger off. Like, I don't get it. So I hope, look, at the end of the day, I wasn't there. I don't know. Innocent till proven guilty. He is. I will defend his right for that. Even though I don't agree with him, I will defend it. And anybody who's trying to say I'm condemning him or anything else, you just didn't watch the video and you're the part of the problem. We have to open up our brains to look at it from a full point of view. And yes, Dan's innocent right now. Until someone can prove his guilt and actually drops something that really is like, okay, well, there it is. We shouldn't condemn Dan. But I can condemn that speech for being hypocritical and ridiculous, because you don't give that same right that you now expect to others. You didn't. You believe Amber? What? You just didn't want to get sued. You did this, got caught, and then you had to double down. And to me, that's why I don't like Dan Wootton. We could agree on Meghan Markle. We could agree on tons of things. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, what he did to Johnny, this is awful, what he did. I mean, this practically nearly destroyed his whole life. And it seems like Johnny wasn't the only one he did it to. The fact that he can just go on TV and say that about Michael Jackson and just keep encouraging that defamatory nonsense. Dude, I hope this teaches Dan Wootton. I really do. I would want nothing more than this guy to actually mean what he says, that I'm bettering myself as a journalist. I'm going to be Please, it's yet to be seen, but that is my take on this. And I think it's important for us to keep an eye on it and to watch this. I'm curious what you guys think. Where do you stand? So many of you still mad at me. Either way, I hope you will leave a comment down below. Before you do, hit that subscribe, hit that bell, smash that thumbs up, and tell me your thoughts on this Dan Wootton exchange. Does it surprise you? Or are you enjoying the karma of seeing this guy who took out Johnny and made such hell for his life now have to squirm a little bit and realize what it feels like? What all these people, all these celebrities that he pushed, now he knows what it feels like. And maybe he should be a bit more careful on his news network. If this was his own blog and he's just doing opinion pieces and gossip, it'd be one thing. But this guy's saying GB News is we are changing the politics of the world. Like, this guy's a serious newscaster. And I'm sorry, he should be held to a different standard. We got to hold up and make sure that this guy isn't doing these shady things. That's just my opinion. I want to hear yours down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for more here on Popcorn Planet and our Royals coverage on Popcorn Palace.